Good evening. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has arrived in Washington, D.C. to attend the historic trilateral meeting between the Philippines, the United States, and Japan. Joining us tonight to give an update is our reporter Gabriel Lalu, live from Washington, D.C. Gab?
Yes, Neil. President Bongbong Marcos arrived here in Washington, D.C. yesterday at exactly 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time. He and his team are expected to have a jam-packed schedule today, starting off with a bilateral meeting between the Philippines Foreign and Trade Secretaries and their U.S. counterparts today morning. By afternoon, Marcos will first have a bilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden before the first ever trilateral summit between the Philippines, the United States, and Japan starts. Filipino and American officials said that the historical trilateral meeting is expected to center on how ties between the three countries could be strengthened, future economic partnerships, and shared security concerns, including China's aggressive actions over the South China Sea. New investment packages on different areas will also be announced. According to Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, they expect investment worth $100 billion from the United States and Japan to flow into the Philippines within the next 5 to 10 years. After the bilateral and the trilateral meetings, Marcos will attend other events hosted by businesses in the U.S., including a dinner, which Romualdez said was set up by the U.S.-Philippine Society. Around 200 business leaders in the U.S. are expected to be present during the dinner. Neil?
Gab, I have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned doon sa report mo that among the issues to be tackled during the trilateral meeting between President Marcos, President Biden, and Prime Minister Kishida ay yung sitwasyon doon sa West Philippine Sea. Are we seeing a more concrete action, perhaps a stronger statement from these three countries with regard to defending our waters?
It was asked yesterday during a press briefing with U.S. National Security Council Advisor for Communications, John Kirby. However, Kirby declined to give further details so as not to preempt the discussions between the three leaders, President Biden, President Marcos, and Prime Minister Kishida. But he was clear that the quadrilateral exercises being conducted by the Philippines, Japan, the US, and Australia would continue, saying that these exercises are being done in international waters where freedom of navigation is encouraged.
I think that's an important point you raised, Gab, no? That this trilateral summit will happen after that quadrilateral maritime activity between the US, the Philippines, Japan, and Australia. Which brings me to this question, because I understand that the DFA has previously said that the trilateral summit is not directed to any country. But some people are worried that this trilateral summit may add fuel to the fire, if you may say, when it comes to the situation and the tension in the West Philippine Sea. What does the Philippine government have to say about that?
Well, on the side of the American government first, Advisor Kirby said that China has nothing to be to overreact to, because the exercises being done were, as I said earlier, were done in international waters where freedom of navigation is encouraged. On the Philippine side, Ambassador Romualdez said that it's China who has already taken actions regarding the issue. And he also reiterated that the Philippines doesn't want to engage in fights or quarrels with other countries, noting that what they want is to implement President Marcos' foreign policy, which is the Philippines being a friend to all and an enemy to none.
One final question, Gab. I think an important point that we must also discuss here is the political climate over there in the US. As you know, the presidential elections will happen in November. And should President Biden not be able to retain his seat as the president of the United States, are we worried that this might change their foreign policy and their relationship with the Philippines?
Well, Advisor Kirby declined to comment on that because he is a part of the National Security Council, and in his position, he cannot say anything political. But he assured the Philippines that whatever happens, that as long as President Biden is in office, the ties, the strong relations between the Philippines and the US will continue. On the other hand, Ambassador Romualdez said that he does not expect any changes to happen, whatever the results may be. We must remember that Ambassador Romualdez has been assigned to the U.S. to the Philippine Embassy in the US since 2017, when President Biden's opponent, or presumptive opponent, former President Donald Trump, was still in office. So, what Ambassador Romualdez said was that the policies being implemented by the United States now, especially relating to the Indo-Pacific, have been formulated during the time of former President Trump. So, if the people on board with Trump years ago would come back if he wins the elections in November, Ambassador Romualdez doesn't think it would be a concern because these strong ties between the United States and the Philippines, well, you may say rejuvenated ties, will still continue.
Okay, Gab, we'll be waiting for further developments regarding that trilateral summit over there in Washington. Take care. That's John Gabriel Lalu live from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Neil.
China once again accuses the Philippines of illegally occupying Pagasa Island as it asserts its supposed sovereign rights over the area. The Chinese embassy maintains its rights over the island when asked about the reported presence of its vessels near the Philippine-governed Pagasa Island earlier this week. The embassy claims that Pagasa Island is illegally occupied by the Philippines, adding that China has sovereignty over the Spratlys Island, Scarborough Reef, Bajo de Masinloc, and their adjacent waters. INQUIRER.net sought confirmation from the Philippine Coast Guard, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, as well as the Department of Foreign Affairs regarding the reported presence of Chinese vessels near Pagasa Island, but the agencies have yet to respond. The DFA, however, previously defied China's claims that insisted that the Philippines owns the area. According to the DFA, Pagasa Island is part of the Kalayaan Island group over which the Philippines exercises territorial sovereignty, jurisdiction, and effective administration in accordance with international law. Pagasa is an island in the Kalayaan chain at least 285 nautical miles from Palawan. The Philippines has long established military and civilian presence in the area. China's sweeping 9-dash claim, now a 10-dash claim, over most of South China Sea was already debunked in 2016 by the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Another arrest warrant is issued against sect leader and alleged sex offender Apollo Kiboy, this time for qualified human trafficking. The Pasig City Regional Trial Court issues the warrant for the founder of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ on Thursday, April 11. This is the second arrest warrant against Kiboy after the Davao City Regional Trial Court issued an arrest warrant for him and 5 of his subordinates for child and sexual abuse charges last week. Pasig RTC Branch 159 Acting Presiding Judge Raynelda Estacio Montesa issues the arrest order after denying the motion of Quiboloy's camp asking to defer or suspend the proceedings and hold in abeyance the issuance of the warrant. Kiboy's camp sought the suspension of the criminal proceedings due to a pending motion for reconsideration before the Office of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla. However, the court says that there is no basis for them to suspend the proceedings by reason of filing of a motion for reconsideration. The Pasig RTC Branch 159 also issues the arrest warrant against 5 of his subordinates, Jacqueline W. Roy, Crescente Canada, Pauline Canada, Ingrid C. Canada, and Sylvia Semanes. Kiboy is also the subject of an arrest order from the Senate stemming from his repeated refusal to attend the probe into his alleged crimes. Sect leader and alleged sex offender Apollo Kiboy is still in the Philippine territory, according to his lawyer, Israelito Torion. The founder of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ and self-proclaimed appointed Son of God is currently considered a fugitive due to a standing arrest warrant by the Davao City Regional Trial Court for his child and sexual abuse charges. The Pasig City Regional Trial Court has also issued a warrant of arrest against Kiboy for qualified human trafficking. In a television interview, Attorney Torion confirms that Kiboy is still in the Philippines. Torion also defends the conditions previously stated by Kiboy regarding his surrender. Torion says that the pastor merely wants an assurance that he will not be extraordinarily rendered to the United States, which he says is different from extradition. Kiboy earlier said that the Philippine government must guarantee that authorities of the United States will not interfere with his present cases or he will not surrender. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. prohibits all government officials and personnel from using sirens, blinkers, and other similar devices along roads. The President issues Administrative Order Number 18, which reminds all government officials and personnel that the use of sirens, dome lights, blinkers, and other similar devices shall only be under exigent or emergency circumstances. According to the administrative order, it has been observed that the unauthorized and indiscriminate use of sirens, blinkers, and other similar signaling or flashing devices has been causing traffic disruptions and unsafe road environment. However, the presidential directive exempts responding fire trucks, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the National Bureau of Investigation, and the Philippine National Police. The order likewise mandates the Department of Transportation and other concerned agencies to review and evaluate existing policies and guidelines to ensure the effective implementation of the order. Transport groups will conduct a series of transport strikes beginning April 15 in defiance of the government's pronouncement that the public utility vehicle franchise consolidation will no longer be extended. In a statement, Transport Group Piston says the series of transport strikes and protest actions will be joined by another transport group, Manibela. Piston Deputy Secretary General Ruben Bailon says the administration is in a hurry to seizure the jobs of drivers and operators, despite ongoing hearings on PUV modernization and a petition that is currently pending in the Supreme Court. Bailon adds that it is obvious that the Marcos administration is not listening to the grievances of the transportation sector. The transport leader also warns that the group will not hesitate to hold consecutive strikes this April. Transport groups have been calling for the complete elimination of the franchise consolidation requirement and the controversial PUV modernization program. The unemployment rate in the country went down to 3.5% in February, according to a report from Philippine Statistics Authority. The number of jobless Filipinos drops to 1.8 million in February from 2.15 million in January. This brought the unemployment rate to 3.5%, lower than the 4.5% record in January. Meanwhile, the underemployment rate also fell to 12.4% in February from 13.9% in January. The National Economic and Development Authority earlier said that the Marcos administration was working on strengthening linkages among industry, the academe, and the public sector to address skill mismatches in the labor market. Here's the latest roundup of today's top stories. China asserts its supposed sovereign rights over Pagasa Island, accusing the Philippines of illegally occupying the area. Another arrest warrant issued against a sect leader and alleged sex offender Apollo Kiboy. And 2 Navy pilots killed after a Philippine Navy helicopter crashed near Cavite City public market. These are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.